All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here once again. My name is Akinwale Akindia. I will be your host in this presentation. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please try and do so. Um, Today I want to speak on IMS auditing fundamentals, integrated management system. That is the full meaning of IMS actually. And when we're talking about integrated management system, you're talking about um, a set of combination. We could look at it as combination of management systems. So you have this organization implementing ISO 9001, at the same time implementing ISO 20000 Part 1, at the same time implementing ISO 22301, implementing ISO 27001. So when you're implementing more than one certification at the same time, right? That is what we mean by integrated management system. And ISO have actually established that to make life easier for every one of us. If you look at each of these standards, they are very similar. All right, clause 4, all right, is context of the organization across many of those standards. Clause 5 is leadership across many of those standards. Clause 6 is planning across many of those standards. So once you know one standard or you have implemented one standard or you have audited a standard, it actually becomes very easy to do another one. And the same thing when you are doing, implemented audit or you are doing integrated audit or integrated implementation. All right, it also makes it very easier for you because the structure of those standards are essentially the same. All right, so what brought us here is actually ISO. ISO is an acronym for International Organization for Standardization. All right, so it's an organization made up of standard setting bodies all over the globe, and they've been around for quite some decades. And in those decades, they've set more than 24,000 standards. Wonderful across any field of knowledge you could think of. All right, there is a standard. All right, for virtually all the fields of endeavors you could think of, and they're still producing more. All right. So we look at the principles of setting ISO standards. Number one, ISO standards respond to a need in the market. So what does that mean? There must be like a commercial justification for creating a standard. So you just go and bring experts together and waste their time on a standard that nobody will use. So there must be a motivation, there must be a justification, there must be a driver before we can say, yes, let's create a standard. Number two, ISO standards are based on global expert opinion. And so you have when you pick a standard, maybe 22301, which is the standard of business continuity management system. So what they're going to do is they're going to bring experts from all over the world, all right, to create what we call like a technical committee or a standing committee on BCMS, on business continuity management system. So everybody there in that committee is an authority. All right. So it helps to ensure that the output of those standards are indeed standardized. Okay. Number three is that the ISO standards are developed through a multi-stakeholder process. Remember, I said each standards actually have like a technical committee, but they don't rely on those technical committee alone. The job of the technical committee is to create like a draft of the standard, and the draft of the standard is now sent out, all right, to advocacy groups, to NGOs, to academia, to regulatory bodies, and other relevant stakeholders, users, all right, and they get feedback globally, right? So that ensures that you have inputs from as many stakeholders as possible in creating these standards. And number four, ISO standards are based on consensus. So there must be a level of agreement, all right, across the stakeholders that contribute uh, to the creation of the standards. And in fact, at the final note of collating the responses and harmonizing them, even the technical committee need to vote, all right, for them to agree that yes, we are good to go. So these four principles actually guide the creation of standards, and that's why you see globally standards are respected. Of course, national laws, all right, they are superior to standards. All right. I also cannot send you to prison, like I always joke in class. All right. I also cannot send you to prison, but a government can, right? A government can. I also cannot withdraw your operating license. All right. But a government can withdraw your operating license even with your certifications, right? So that's why we say national laws are superior to international standards. But because of a lot of efforts have been invested in creating these standards, you discover that it's always encouraged that we harmonize our national laws with international standards. All right, because most of the time, if not all the time, most of the time, you will discover that the superior agreement actually lies with the national standards. Okay, so what was an audit? Okay, was an audit. Um, Let me start from the very beginning, right? The businesses of the early days were more of sole proprietorship, right? So you have what we call management and ownership embedded in the same person or person or group of persons, right? So the owner is also the manager. In that case, you really don't need an audit, all right? So I'm the owner of the business. I'm the one preparing the financial reports and what is going on in my organization. So I don't need an auditor, all right, but with time, you see, businesses started growing, all right, and beyond what the owners can actually manage. Apart from that, you start having business owners, investing in areas where they don't really have the background knowledge or skill. All right, so you have somebody um, maybe that has the resources now want to go into mining, okay, or oil exploration, or um, import and export, okay, and he or she does not really have the skill or the background knowledge in those areas. So what do? You have to hand over the management, the running of the organization to a third party. And that creates, what we call the agency problem. So what is the agency problem? The agency problem is the problem that arises when the owner is not the manager. So the moment you separate the ownership from management, there is always a tendency, there's always a risk that the management will not work right in the interest of the owners of the business. The owners are not there, right? So because of that, the, the managers may start making decisions, right, that is going to impair the investment of the owners of the business in the long or short run. And that's why I see across the world businesses collapse, even multinationals, all right, they do collapse, all right, because of this this challenge of agency problem. So the agency problem created a search for men and women of integrity, right, that we can depend upon. All right. So the earliest auditors were actually not audit firms like we know now, where we have now. They were women and men of proven integrity in the society that we can count on, that people can count on, people can vouch for. That no, it's what he or she sees that he or she is going to write. So they started looking for men and women like that that they can count on. And that's what gave rise, all right, to the office of the auditor. So the office of the auditor is now to be like a middleman, all right, between the principals of the business, that is the owners of the business, and the agents of the business, that is the directors of the business. So the directors prepare the financial statements, all right, or the financial reports, as it may be. Then, of course, the owners cannot have confidence in that report since they were not the one that prepared it until a third party, a professional called an auditor, reviews those financial reports, all right, obtains of evidence, of course, and is able to now write his or her opinion. That is the beginning of audit. All right. So I always hold that, all right, the first auditors were actually financial auditors, right? So we started formalizing financial audit. Then after some time, things started getting complex. Right, businesses started getting more complex, and that started creating other set of auditors, like technology auditors, like environmental auditors, right, compliance auditors. Okay, so like that, like that, like that, like that, and till we have, management system audit as we have today. So basically, an audit is basically a systematic, all right, independent evaluation, okay, of a subject matter by a professional, all right, otherwise called an assurance practitioner, to be able to provide a report as regard the accuracy, as it regard the veracity, as regard the reliability of the audited subject matter, and to prepare a report to whoever is going to be the users of those reports. Okay, so what is an auditor, or who is an auditor? An auditor is a professional who helps determine if organizations, right, and businesses, whether they follow the rules, whether they operate with integrity, that they accurately present financial information. All right, so like I said, there are different types of audits: financial audit, IS audits, environmental audits, compliance audits. So basically, all right, the job of the auditor is to be able to check, to be able to obtain evidence, to be able to write a report, all right, as regard the subject matter that is being presented to the auditor. All right. So we talk about, the competencies of an auditor. This is very important. All right. So, as we grow up in life, we discover that, even what we're taught in primary school is not a waste. Right. You may think, oh, what is it? I'm now, maybe I'm in my fifth year of career, right? 10th year of career, what we learn in those primary schools, in those junior secondary schools, there's a foundation, right? They are building, they are part of what we have today, part of what we become today, right? Based on those knowledge. So the auditor, all right, regardless of what he or she studied in school, all right, all those background, yeah, what the person have done in the past also contributes to the efficacy, the effectiveness, right, of the auditor. Of course, I always say it in audit classes that, in fact, the more diverse the journey of the auditor, the better actually for an organization or even for the auditor in terms of effectiveness, right? Especially for internal auditors, right? Internal auditors have, you've seen they work in they work in HR, they work in maybe in operations, they work in like three, four, five departments before they move to internal audit. They're always more effective, right? Because like I always say also in audit classes, the audit is process centric. Whoever understand the process is the auditor. Get me? All right. Why do we give our cars to mechanics? All right. Because the mechanics, they understand how a perfect car should work. So when a car is working imperfectly, it is easy for them to actually pinpoint where the problem is coming from. All right. We need auditors with very extensive background, even in other fields of knowledge apart from auditing. So general competencies need to be able to communicate, all right? The auditor is always talking, all right? Even when you are not talking, all right, you are preparing reports. So ultimately, the ultimate of audit is audit report, right? So if you have audit report, you don't have good writing skills, you don't have good speaking skills. So how are you going to present the audit reports, right? The auditor is expected to be somebody that is very organized. So organizational skills are very key, right? Multitasking and everything. All right. You should be able to identify problems and recommend. It's not just not to say it is a problem. All right. That's the challenge with some auditors just looking for problems. Right. It's not enough for you to say this is the problem. You have to tell us the solution. That's why Institute of Internal Auditors, all right, we always say an auditor is an what? Is a consultant, all right? Is an internal consultant, that is internal auditors. All right. So what makes you a consultant as an auditor is that you can say, okay, this is a problem. You can also say this is a solution. All right. You need to be able to have the ability to promote value of internal audit or external audit. As the case may be, you need to have conflict resolution or negotiation skills. Every auditor will attest that one time or the other, you have come in contact, or you have find yourself in a situation where tempers will start flaring up. Right. It's either within the audit team, right, or between the auditors and the auditing team. This it happens, a lot. So a good auditor must be somebody that have very sound emotional intelligence, okay, to be able to negotiate and navigate in situations like this. And of course, IT skills, right? So you can't be an auditor in this age and in this time without having strong computing skills, right? The more technical skills, the more IT skills you have, the better you are as an auditor. All right, behavioral skills, you need to be able to know how to keep your mouth shut. Confidentiality. Auditor sees a lot of things, a lot of confidential information, right? We have to be very careful, right? Non-disclosure agreements, right? Respect the privacy of the auditee. All right, you need to be able to make sound judgment. We call it professional judgment. And professional judgment doesn't jump on people, is grown, right? Is nurtured over time, right? Through training, through experience, through study, all right? Through skill acquisition. So you are able to make, almost all the time a decision. You're able to make a judgment, all right? Even with, when even situations are hazy, all right, you are still able to make, all right, a decision that is close to the mark because of the level of knowledge you have. All right, a good auditor should be a good team player, should be able to facilitate, to have leadership skills. We all know leadership means influence, right? Ability to lead, ability to engineer, ability to motivate. That's leadership, right? A good auditor should be a change catalyst. Now they're depending on you to turn things around. Like I always say in my audit classes, a very good auditor can be a good CEO, because the auditor knows the business. A good auditor knows the organization end to end, right? So a good auditor should also be able to work independently, right? We say he or she should be a team player, but he or she should also be able to work, independently to get things done. Then, of course, should be governed and be ethically sound, all right? Sensitivity, all right? It's also very key. As an auditor, you're going to be working across, sometimes across countries, all right, across cultures, all right? So you have to be very careful not to allow conflicts, all right? Respect other people's point of view, all right? Respect other people's way of life as an auditor, especially when you are working cross country, right? Objectivity, an auditor must be somebody that is objective, right? You don't make up your mind until you see the evidence, right? So you have a situation whereby an auditor decides to uh, use the auditing authority, so to say, to settle personal scores. That is not acceptable. So technical skills, like I've said, the auditor must understand the business end to end, right? The auditor must be able to have business process analysis, must be able to know controls. If you look at ISO 27001, those Annex A controls, before the were 114 controls in ISO 27001, all right, version 2013. But now we have ISO 27001 version 2022. All right, so those 114 controls are now 93 controls. All right, so we have what is it called? We have organizational controls, we have people controls, we have physical controls. Then lastly, we have technological controls. A very good auditor, all right, should be able to have those controls at his or her fingertips, especially if you are auditing 27001. You cannot audit 27001 successfully without understanding those NSA controls. They are very compulsory. Even 22301, you want to implement 223, you want to audit 22301. That means you need to understand your clause 8 of 22301, right? End to end. So there are some key PCMS controls there, right? For example, BIA, right, is a control, business impact analysis, all right, which must be done by an organization implementing 22301. So risk assessment, all right, need to be done, regularly. It's clearly specified there. Then from the BIA and the risk assessment, they need to come up with the business continuity strategies and solutions. All right. From the business continuity strategy and solutions, they need to come up with the business continuity plan. All right. Then from the business continuity plan, plus 8.5, all right, you need to ensure exercise and testing is a control. So for BCMS. So you also have 8.6, I think, evaluation of business continuity documentation and capabilities. So you see, a very good ISO auditor, right, need to understand the relevant controls that are applicable for the standards being audited. All right, a good auditor need to have sound operational and management research skills. Okay, a good auditor must be able to have knowledge of problem solving tools and techniques, financial analysis, and of course, statistical sampling. Know that we can't do most of the time. In fact, audit itself is sampling. Nobody can do 100% testing in this age and time, right? It's just not possible. That's why sampling is inevitable in audits. All right, sampling occurs because you don't have the time limitation, you don't have the resource limitation. So those two things are what time and cost limitations. That's what make sampling inevitable, right? And so the more you lean towards statistical sampling, better, because judgmental sampling, all right, which is another method, right, is subjective. Okay, so a good auditor should be able to have knowledge of statistical sampling. Now, let me talk about elements of assurance engagements. Okay, so audit is a type of assurance engagement. Another type of assurance engagement is what we call review, right? Assurance, audit and review are subsets of assurance engagement. So there are 5 elements of assurance engagement, very, very important in audit. The first, I will not follow what is on the screen. So the first, let me start from the last now, is the tripartite, right? It is a three-party relationship. I've talked about that when I started. So at one hand, you have the responsible party or the agents that is preparing the reports, that is making, assertions. Then at the other hand, you have maybe the principal that is going to make use of the report being prepared by the agent. Of course, they cannot believe what the agents have supplied until an auditor, right, checks for the assurance practitioner. So initially, this is actually applied to external audits, financial external audit. So whereby you have the shareholders, all right, as the principal, then you have the directors as the agent, you call them responsible party, then you have the auditor. So that's the three-party relationship. But I also noticed that it can be is applicable also, right, to management system certification, right? So you have at one end the auditee or the client organization that need 27001 or whichever certification. All right, then you have the certification body, all right, which is going to award that certification. All right, but the certification body cannot just depend on the company saying, yes, we have all the, we bought the standard, we have implemented it. They can't take their word for sheets like that. So we need an auditor, a set of auditors to go and check. All right, +4, we comply, +5, and I say and so on. And they write the audit report and they present that to the certification body. So you can see now. So it also works for certification. So it's a three-party relationship. That is the first element of an assurance engagement. The second element of assurance engagement is that there must be a subject matter, right? You must have something you are auditing. So in this case, it could be 27001, it could be 20,000, it could be 27001, 9001, and so on, 55001, the rest of it. So there must be a subject matter. So the third element is that the auditors must gather evidence. Right. The evidence is the link between your audit objective and the audit opinion or the conclusion. So for us to say yes, for you to say there's a compliance or not compliance or conformity or not conformity, show us the evidence. Show us the evidence. All right. So then the evidence is used to build and write a report. So there must be an audit report. Okay. Then the C, all right, that's the criteria. All right. The criteria is the authority that the auditor is drawing from to say yes, there's a conformity. So if you say there's a conformity, why? All right, the standard says, or ISO 27001 says, the 4.1, that the organization shall describe the internal and external issues, all right, that is motivating them to implement, all right, the ISMs, right? So you have the auditor. So what the criteria there now is that standard, all right, that we are implementing, that we are using as a reference. There could be other criteria, right? It could be maybe regulatory body, pronouns and directives, right? It could be a law, like in Nigeria, we have NDPR, Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, that's law. It could be other standard like PCI DSS, right? Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act in America, right? And so on and so forth. So the criteria basically is a reference, right? That is a yardstick. Let me say that yardstick benchmark that doctor is going to use to determine whether there is conformity. But I believe that's clear. So those are the 5 elements that make up every assurance engagement. All right. So let me talk here about types of audits. Now, there are different ways you can look at types of audit. Like I've said, you have IS audit, you have management system audit, you have financial audit, and so on, compliance audit. You can also look at it in terms of the relationships, all right, the relationships involved. For example, we have what we call the first party audit. What's first party audit? When an organization is auditing itself, especially through the internal audit function, right? So you have internal audit function, auditing IT, auditing HR, right? Auditing the IMS implementation, right? So I think that's close 9, right? Of ISO 27001. Most of the ISO, all right, that's close 9.2, right? Internal audits. Right. So that internal audit, that clause 9.2 requirement is actually a first party audit. You're supposed to audit yourself as an organization. That's first party. Then you have second party audit. Second party audit is mostly used for auditing of vendors. So you as an organization, you have a team that is going to audit your vendors, right, to ensure compliance with certain requirements. Right. Maybe there are certain requirements they need to meet for them to be your vendor to continue to be your vendor. Now that audit is what we call second party audit. Then we have third party audit. Third party audit is when the organization is being audited not by itself, but by an external body, like your statutory auditors, right? The statutory auditors auditing a client organization. That is a third party audit, right? Then when you have a certification body also auditing an organization for ISO implementation certification. That is also another good example of third party audit. Okay. Now, let me talk about principles of auditing. This is drawn from ISO 19011. This is like the classic criteria that we as auditors, that guides us. So it's the guidelines, provide guidance, right, for auditing management systems. All right. So yes, we know we have financial audit and ISO database. Okay. Now, this is our own for management system audits. Any auditor that is going to audit a management system audit, this is our reference. All right. ISO 19011. Please don't forget. All right. Now, these standards for auditors of management system says there are 7 principles of auditing. Number 1 is integrity. So this is the foundation for an auditor. Remember, I said when I was talking about the three party relationship and the agency problem. So the first auditors were not organizations. They are not auditing firms. They were individuals, men and women of proven integrity in society. That when they say yes, everybody knows yes, and when they say no, everybody knows no is no. Right. So without integrity, you can't function appropriately in the audit profession. You will be a minus, right? That's not the truth, right? Because there will be opportunities to, to look the other way. There are opportunities to abuse, right? Opportunities, authorities, privileges. So the auditor must be somebody that has integrity. All right. Number 2 is fair presentation, which is the title of integrity, right? So you write only what you see. You present, you report only what you see, not what you think, not what you're told. All right. The third is due professional care, and that has to do, with preparing yourself for every audit. Right. You don't take an audit, you are not competent to actually deliver on. You keep on building yourself, right? And you are very careful, right? You are not negligent in auditing, right? Like we have, for example, recommendations. For example, now if you have up to like a population of 400 uh, to test, and you don't have the time and resources to test all the 400, right? Generally, it's advised that you should be able to test at least 25 out of 400, right? That is on sampling. So 366, I think it's 366 plus, right? So you have like 400 in 400 items for transactions. And out of the 400, not test 10. All right. You can't defend that before anybody. Out of 400 items, test 10, then you stop. You stop there. Say the start writing of the report. You have got enough. So due professional care is about, about getting the training, getting the competence, all right, realizing that, a lot depends on you, okay? There's what we call public interest in audit. What does that mean? Every audit report, all right, has the public interest implication because that organization that didn't pass the audit that you passed, there are stakeholders that are depending, all right, that are depending on them. If that company fails to trigger to all the stakeholders, sometimes it can trigger to a country. We've seen, and we all know case studies. All right, 2008 global economic meltdown. All right, starting from 1 or 2 organizations collapsing, and look at the global ripple effect. So it starts. So due professional care is about that realization that you have to be very careful and be sincere with yourself and stakeholders. All right. Then you have what we call confidentiality. All right. Confidentiality means that as an auditor, you see a lot, then you have to keep your mouth shut. You are not allowed to divulge information that you don't have the express permission of the client to divulge. That would be very, very wrong. Share, sensitive information without authorization. Even though there are some exceptional cases where you can. For example, right, if the law says you must, okay, if it's required by law, you don't have a choice. Okay, like in Nigeria, we have the we have this law on money laundering prohibition act, right? And it says, I think 2011 or so, right? It states clearly that if you, as a professional, if you suspect, not that you confirm, if you suspect that your client is into money laundering or terrorism, and so on, you must report, right? You must report. Suspicion, that's what the law says. And if you don't report, that makes you a criminal, right? So in that case, we have to forget confidentiality because it is required, by law. So if it is required by law, you don't have a choice, okay, than to. Or another case is where the client expressly give you permission. The client gives you permission, why not? So, but apart from those, exceptions, generally you're not allowed to divulge sensitive information without permission, right? The next one is independence, and this is also very central to audit. So you need to be independent. So that's what we call independence of the mind. That is, you go for an audit, your mind is not made up, right? You don't make up that the audit has already passed or has already failed. So your mind is just like a plain, chalkboard, right? So it's only what you see, like we said, that you're going to write. That's independence of mind. You're free of bias, you're free of any constraints, right? Then we have independence of the appearance. That is, you may be independent, but people that are looking at you the way you're carrying yourself, with your relationship with the entity, they may conclude that you are not independent. So you should also be very careful of people' opinion of you, right, as an auditor. It's not just that you're independent, you have to be very careful that you are not doing anything that will make people to think that you are not independent. All right, that is independence of appearance. All right, I will talk also more about independence later. Then the sixth one is evidence-based approach. So said it that you cannot be writing conformity report when there is no evidence. You cannot be saying there is non-conformity when there is no evidence. You cannot say this is a major non-conformity, there's no evidence. So you need to be able to provide sufficient, appropriate evidence. All right. The evidence must be enough in terms of quantity. That is, right. You can say evidence number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. The evidence must be also enough in terms of quality, right? Quality in terms of the evidence being reliable, in terms of the evidence being, being relevant, right? That is quality, right? The evidence is reliable, the evidence is relevant to the audit. Okay, then the last one is risk-based approach, right? That is, you are very conscious of the risks that exist in the context of the organization you are auditing. And like I always say in audit classes, this is actually taking the auditor to know the client, to know the industry of the client, right? Here is, for example, you're auditing a bank. Here is in a bank, right? Is fraud, right? You start the bank today, care is not taken. That very day the bank starts, there will be a fraud. It's the nature of banking. So whoever is going to audit a bank must have that in mind, must draft that into the audit program, right? Okay, you are auditing an insurance company, right? There will always be risk of false claims. people are going to package false claims just to be able to defraud the insurance company. Sometimes it goes through, right? Then, of course, the insurance company too will be under pressure to create, right, false, non-existing policies just to make the books look good. In fact, from my research, the first computer IS audit was an audit of an insurance company. And it took 2 years. It took 2 years for them to finish that audit because that time the skills was not there. Right? The skills were not there to do the audit properly. 2 years, right? The insurance company was creating non-existing policies. All right. So it takes knowledge of that sector. Right. So you need to be able to prepare your audits, right? Audit program, audit test, audit procedure, bearing in mind the risks that are within the context of the organization or the sector or the industry you are auditing. Okay, so those are the 7 principles of auditing. All right, I said I will talk more about independence. So I've talked about the fact that you can have independence of mind, all right, can have independence of appearance. So we have what we call threats to independence, right? So we have what we call self-interest threats. What's that? So your interest and the interest of the auditee has matched. That's very dangerous, right? So for example, you have an investment in the auditee as an auditor. So you cannot be objective. You have lost the independence of mind. You and the auditee are you are doing joint ventures. You have a business venture together. All right, that's self-interest. Okay. Um, it's also agreed that overdue payments, right, can also create self-interest. The auditee is owing you maybe for like 3 years audits they've not paid. And so they can use that one to actually hold the auditor to ransom. So you are very careful you're dealing with them because you don't want to do anything that will make them angry or that will make them lose interest in paying for your past service. All right, so self-interest, right? Then you have self-review. So self-review is you're auditing your own work. That's self-review. When the auditor is the one auditing his or her own work, that's self-review. The familiarity, right? That you have become too close, right? To become too close, that edge, that sharpness, all right, it's lost in audit. Then you have intimidation, right? Outright aggression, right, by the auditee against it. This happens, unfortunately. So these are the threats to independence that the auditor need to watch out for in the course of audits. Now, so let me talk about structure of ISO standards. Now, I mentioned that the ISO have tried a lot to harmonize the structure of most of the standards. If you look at 27001, if you look at 20,000, if you look at 22301, if you look at 9001, if you look at 55001, virtually all of them, this is what is on the screen is what you see. All right, virtually all of them, 14001, environmental management system. So you start from +4, context of the organization. Of course, +1 is there. Of course, +1 is cool. And what that says is that the standard is for all organization, whether SME, private sector, public sector. That's what the scope says, right? So we don't implement and we don't want it +1. Then you have +2. +2 is basically +2. +2 is talking about is it terms? I think terms and definitions also. All right. No, normative. Okay. +2 is normative reference. I beg your pardon. No, +2 is normative reference. And what that is saying more or less is that okay, there may be some other materials you could check for you to better appreciate this standard, right? So for many of the standards, right, the normative reference, right, is the overview standard. All the standards, now we have what we call family of standard. For example, you have ISO 27001, 27,000 family of standard. So you have ISO 27,000 as the vocabulary standard overview. So if you want to know terminologies of ISMS, you check ISO 27,000. All right. Then you have ISO 27001 as the flagship. that family. Then you have supporting guidance standards, which will help you to appreciate 27001 better. So you have ISO 27002, ISO 27003, ISO 27004, ISO 27005, and so on like that. So all those ones are basically to support your understanding of implementing auditing 27001. Interesting. So the same thing for BCMS. So you have um, ISO 22301 as the flagship of this family. Then you have ISO 22300. All right, ISO 22300, right, is the vocabulary, is overview. So most of the time, the clause 2 normative reference always point us to that vocabulary. Okay, if you want to know more about the standards, get better understanding, knows, basic vocabularies, overview, check the, this reference. So like I said, for 27001, the normative reference, all right, I think it's in 7,000, right? For 22301, I think it's 300. Some of them, few of them does not have normative reference. Not all of them specify the normative reference. So for any of the standard you are auditing, right, you can check that clause 2. So we don't implement clause 2, we don't implement clause 3. All right. We don't implement and we don't audit clause 2. So clause 3 is terms and definitions, basically. All right. So for some of the standards, they have the space to define, like ISO 23301. If you look at ISO 23301, they actually took pains to define some keywords, audits, um, system, management system, business continuity, all those RTO, RPO. So they have time to actually define. But in 27001, there is no space, maybe because of the Annex A. Annex A is sanitary control. So there's just referred us to ISO 27000. All right. Anybody that wants ISMS terms and definitions, look at ISO 27000. So for some of the standards for clause 3, you're going to see terms and definitions. For some of them, you will not see, they just require you to the overview standard, all right, to get more knowledge of terminologies. So we do implement for audit plus 1, 2, 3. So real implementation starts from +4 to +10, right? So for 4 +4 context of the organization, any of the standards you are auditing, the idea here is that the auditor, the implementers need to be able to show you, they need to prove to you that they know the organization they have implemented for. So if I'm auditing, all right, let's just say an insurance company, for example, all right, I want to see internal issues in the insurance industry that is relevant to ISMS. I want to see the external issues that that are relevant to ISMS, all right, in that sector. That is 4.1. 4.2 says that we need to look at the stakeholders, that organization and their interests. All right. 4.3 says that must be scope of either the RSMS, or the SMS, the BCMS. So that's what you are auditing. So you want objective evidence, all right, that the the company, right, has actually been able to create. It's actually a document anyway. Clause 4 is basically documentary. You want to be able to see a document where you can see the organization. So I want to, for 4.1 exactly, I want to be able to see the vision, I want to see the mission, I want to see maybe high level organizational structure, right, of the organization. I want to be able to see the values of that organization. I want to know where they are, their location. I want to understand their industry. I want to understand the challenges they are facing, right, in that organization. That is the essence of cross-4. And that is what you as an editor, you are looking for objective evidence for. All right, clause 5 is leadership. All right. So 5.1 leadership activity. So as an auditor, you're looking for all the evidence that the leadership of the organization, they are not sleeping partners, they are championing the implementation. And that is basically what you are looking for. You are looking for evidence of leadership. All right. So clause 5.2 is basically on policy, either SMS policy or SMS policy or BCMS policy, and that's what you are auditing. Do they have the relevant policy, or is it communicated? All right, 5.3 is organizational roles and responsibilities. So you want to see that the relevant roles have been assigned, relevant offices have been assigned, relevant committees have been created. All right, so that is what you check for in clause 5. Clause 6, planning. Incidentally, clause 6 is more risk assessments. All right, so you want to check that they have a risk assessment, a risk management process, right? You want to check whether they have a risk register, right? If it is 27001, right here, you need to also have the statement of applicability, all right, under your clause 6.1, all right. Clause 6.2 is talking about uh, the objectives, either SMS objective, either BCMS objectives, either SMS objectives, and so on, and the plan to achieve them. So you want to look at whether they have those objectives documented and the plan to achieve them also. All right. Then I think on that clause 6 to 6.3 talking about changes. All right. How do they make changes to implementation if there is need? Right. There may be a change of regulation, maybe a change of um, software and so on. So how would that affect the implementation? Right. So you want to just confirm that they know that change is constant. And so how will they ensure that the change is approved? Okay. So that's clause 6. Clause 7 is support. Very straightforward. Clause 7.1, they have the resources for implementation. Clause 7.2, what is the evidence? Show me evidence of competence in the organization. Clause 7.3, show me evidence you are doing awareness, ISMS awareness, BCMS awareness, all right, and so on. Okay, clause 7.4, show me evidence of communication, internal communication, external communication in the organization. Clause 7.5, show me the documents. And mandatory documents are in order, they're secured, they're protected, all right? They can be easily retrieved, they're communicated. That is what clause 7.5 is talking about. So every one of them ended at clause 7.5. I think apart from ISO 30,000, which has 7.6 knowledge, which is asking for how knowledge for service management, right? Uh, is 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 processed in that organization. How is it captured? How is it disseminated within the organization? So that is basically evidence. Plus 8 is where you know you now have major serious difference across the standard. All right. For example, for ISMS, plus 8 is more of risk assessment, risk treatment, basically. It's actually risk treatment. So all the risk assessment you have done, recommendations you have made, implement them. Your Annex A controls you have recommended, and 3 of them also implement them. So that's why ISMS. For BCMS, all right. For BCMS is BIA, right? Clause 8 is BIA, risk assessment, right? Business continuity strategies and solutions, business continuity plan, all right, exercises and tests. All right. For SMS, clause 8 is more of creating a service portfolio, service catalog, relationship management, relationship management, incident management, problem management, service request management, service level management. So like that. So that clause 8 is very diverse. All right. So depending on what you are auditing, and basically your job there is to confirm that what you've done is exactly what the standards clause 8. Clause 9 is generic performance evaluation, 9.1, right? Monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation. So you must have metrics. ISMS metrics you are tracking, SMS metrics you are tracking, BCMS metrics you are tracking, and so on and so forth. Depending on what you are auditing, that's what 9.1 says. 9.2 says you must do internal audit of the implementation. So have they done internal audit of implementation? That's what they're checking. 9.3 says management review must be done at planned intervals. The standard did not specify frequency of management review. It says at planned intervals. The same thing goes for internal audit. Internal audit should be done at planned intervals. The frequency is the organization that will determine the frequency. So your job as auditor is to confirm whatever frequency is specified, right? The process of verification that they are sticking to. That is basically what you're going to audit. So you're going to audit the minutes of the management review for clause 9.3. Clause 10 is basically improvement, right? So 10.1 is mostly non-conformity and corrective actions. So if non-conformities are raised against implementation, are they logging it? Are they closing it? Are they learning from it? That is basically 10.1. 10.2 is more of an improvement. So do they have a continuous improvement log? All right. Since implementation, have there been any improvements? Are there opportunities to improve the implementation? Are they taking notes? Are they taking advantage of those opportunities? That's what they want in class text. So in a summary, this is the standard mostly. All right, and this is also mapped to what we call PDCA. All right, Demi Circle, plan, do, check, act, plan, do, check, act. All right, Demi Circle is named after Dr. Edward Demi that created it, and is basically used in quality management fields. Then we brought it to IMS also, management system implementations. All right, so there is a mapping. So plan, that is plan the IMS and integrated management system. Right, that plan is mapped to +4, +5, +6, +7. So planning is actually what we are doing in +4, +5, 6, and 7 is planning. Then you have D, which is the do. That do is operation. All right, so it's mapped to +8. All right, the check is okay. What you have done, check it. How do you check? Check with internal, check with management review and so on. So check is mapped to +9. Then improvements is mapped to +10. Acts. All right. Like I always joke in class that it should have actually been PDCI. Plan, do, check, improve. But like the guy does not like that other sound. Act, PDCA. So because that act is actually improvement. So the acts of the Deming circle is mapped to improve. Don't forget that P plan is mapped to +4, 5, 6, 7. All right, do is mapped to +8, check is mapped to +9, and act is mapped to +10. So, like I've said, the audit objective is to gather evidence to confirm whether the auditee has met the requirements or not. Okay, so the non-conformities we raise are basically two. Whether it's a major non-conformity or a minor non-conformity. So major non-conformity means a particular requirement was not met at all. Right? Maybe what was done did not even scratch the surface, all right, of that requirement. That's a major non-conformity. Then we have a minor non-conformity, which means there's a partial fulfillment of the requirements. All right, it's partial, all right, not fully implemented. There are also other um what do I call it now? Form of exceptions, all right, that's quote and unquote that auditors can also rely. There's what we call observation. But basically we have to, don't let me confuse you. The non-conformities are major, minor, major or minor, right? But we have like what I can just call extras, right? Like observation. So observation is not really a non-conformity, either major or minor, but please watch it. Yet it's not a non-conformity, but please take notes. That's what observation is. OFI is opportunity for improvement. You have done very well, or it could be better. All right, you have made the requirement, but I see that if you do this, all right, your results will be better than what it is. That is opportunity for improvement. Okay, so let me talk about the certification process. So we have the accreditation bodies, most of the time established by by government or national laws. So they have that power to be able to accredit a certification body. So the certification bodies are accredited organizations that can certify either management systems or personnel or even products. All right. So depending on the accreditation they have. So for example, if a certification body is accredited against ISO 17021 at one, so which means they can certify management systems like ISO 27001, ISO 22301, and so on. Right? That is a management system certification body. If an organization, certification body is accredited against ISO 17024, that means they are certified they are accredited to certify personnel. Like example, that you want to be a lead auditor, you want to be lead implementer, all right, such an organization can certify you. All right. If they are accredited against ISO 17065, then such an organization is authorized to actually certify products and processes. So, so we have at the apex accreditation body. Below them we have certification bodies. Then below them we have the client organizations and personnel seeking certifications. I believe that is clear. Then I want to talk about stage one and stage two audit. So the audit itself is broken into two. Stage one audit is also called a readiness audit. It's basically a review of your documentation. All right, mandatory documentation for the implementation. That's what do in stage one audit. Stage two audit is actually we have to check the effectiveness, the implementation proper. So stage one is basically to check design, check documentations. All right. Stage two is the actual certification where we check the implementations you have done to confirm that you are fully uh, in conformity. Okay. So then of course we are also have what we call opening and closing meetings. Opening meetings is basically used to kickstart the audit. All right. So there, the objective is basically for the lead auditor to present his or her team to the audit team to also kind of mention this is the objectives. All right. Introduce the team, introduce the objective of the audit, confirm timelines. All right. We're here to spend 1 week. Confirm that the resources that will be needed for the audit are available. It's also to meet, all right, the team of the auditing management team and people they will be working with on the side of client organization. All right, and to set the date for the closing meeting. That is the idea behind the opening meeting. Then we have the closing meeting. So the closing meeting, of course, that means we're through with the audit. So it's basically the lead auditor also then presenting the final, extract of the audit reports, basically. So we can do like a recap of the audit objective, then we share our findings. All right. And we can also discuss whether there will be a need for what we call audit follow-up or not. So audit follow-up is this, all the recommendations we have made, what to confirm after some given time, confirm that those recommendations have been closed. That is the essence of the audit follow-up, very important. So closing meeting is to basically present the findings. Okay, then if by the time you finish the audit and you are recommended, all right, for the certification, all right, the auditors cannot certify you, that they will just make recommendation to the certification body, all right. So if you are given the certification lasts for 3 years, all right. So within the first 12 months of certification, you get to have what we call the surveillance audit. The essence of the surveillance audit is to ensure you didn't go to sleep. It can happen, all right? Businesses do go to sleep after that certification. So to ensure that you are still maintaining, all right, the requirement of the standard, that's why we have those surveillance audit. Not going to be a full audit, of course, all right? So they want to check whether the culture is still being maintained. They want to check if there are major changes within that 1 year, whether you have responded appropriately. For example, you may be on premise when you got certification, now you're on cloud. Of course, they expect you to have, your documentations are supposed to have been upgraded, right? Your recovery strategies, if it is BCMS, should have been modified, right? So those are the essence of surveillance audit. So within the first 12 months, they do surveillance audit one. Within the next 12 months again, they do surveillance audit two. All right. Then um towards the end of the second year, all right, or the beginning of the third year, all right, worst case scenario, then you do the recertification audit because the certificate is valid only for 3 years. So if you are still interested in continuing with the certification, all right, you recertified. Okay, so let me talk about audit risk. Audit risk is in every audit, right? So audit risk is the risk that the audit opinion will be invalid, right? So we have what we call inherent risk. Inherent risk is the risk that is embedded in a system, in a business, in an organization before you start thinking of controls to address it. Like I've mentioned earlier, you start a bank. What is the risk? Fraud. You start an insurance company. What is the inherent risk? All right. First claim. Okay. You want to play football, all right, as a career. What is the inherent risk in playing football? All right. Injury. So you see, so every business has its own peculiar inherent risk. So a very good auditor must understand the inherent risk in the environment he or she is auditing. All right. The analysis of the control risk. The control risk is the risk that the controls that will be implemented to address the inherent risk might fail. That is also possible. All right. Detection risk is the risk that the auditor, all right, will not detect for one reason or the other, right, what should have been detected during an audit. It could be a case of sampling, right? Because if you sample, the what we call sampling risk, so that will also increase detection risk. It could also be a case of competence, all right? The auditor may just not be competent, okay? So there are many factors, all right? Negligence and the rest of it, okay? So when these three risks combine together, then you have the probability that the audit opinion is going to be wrong. Okay, audit offer is a contract between the certification body and the auditor. Remember, I talked about three-party relationship. So a lot of time, the auditors are not even staff of the certification body. All right. So that is why the certification body sometimes they send what we call an observer, all right, with the auditors. Right. The job of the observer is basically to serve as eye of the certification body. Right? So they are not auditors, right? The auditee too can provide what we call a guide, right? So if you are in a line that is not you're not familiar with, maybe sometimes you travel overseas for the audit, so you need a guide, be like your protocol officer. So they are not auditor, they are not auditors, but they are there to guide. So the guide is from the side is presented by client organization, while the observer is presented by the certification body to follow the auditors. So both of them are not auditors and should not be given audit responsibilities. So the audit offer is the contract between the certification body and the auditor. So for the specifics of auditing, is the integrated management system now. So you need to look at it. That's why I said refer to any of the standards you are going to audit, 9001, 55001, 14001. So you need to have a copy of those standards. All right, do I've summarized, at least for clause 4, right? For clause 4 to 4 is virtually the same, 5 is virtually the same, 6, 7, 9, 10. The major difference is actually the clause 8. So you need to be able to look at what those standards are basically specifically says, especially requires, especially for Plus 8, for you to be able to audit the specific. All right, so I believe with this um, knowledge I've shared with you in this video, you will have more than enough resources to be able to start uh, or maybe to write and uh, a management system audit exam, or to even prepare yourself for the management system audit exercise. So if you have any questions, right, or area that is not clear, right, you can just drop a comment, right, in the comments box. I would like to hear from you about what you've learned, or what you want me to maybe share again in another video, uh, in terms of emphasis. So thank you so much for listening to me. Once again, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please try and do so. Thank you.